Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to the Dynamic Decisions podcast. Welcome to season 2. We are super excited to be back here again talking about all of the successful strategies that drive successful decision-making in the world of business. Why do we talk about this? Because the best decisions come from great conversations. So I'm your host, Tisha Cable, CEO of C Model Data, and today we have a visionary leader in people, risk, organizational development, and talent strategy. Her name is Dr. Diane Dye. She's the founder and chief consultant at People Risk Consulting. She's got an extensive career spanning over 20 years and brings a wealth of experience in building high-performing teams and mitigating organizational risks. I am super excited and super pumped to have, can I call you Dr. Dye?
You can call me Dr. Dye. You can call me Diane. You can call me 3D. Just don't call me late to this podcast.
Okay. Okay. I'll take Dr. Dye. I really like it. So anyway, super excited for you to be here. Tell us all about you. Tell me a little bit more about your role as founder of People Risk Consulting and really the work that you guys do there.
Well, so great to be here, Tisha. So I am Dr. Diane Dye. I am the strategist that founders, CEOs, and executives bring in the room when they are ready to really lean into experimentation strategy to grow their businesses, to increase their revenue, or perhaps to innovate to next levels.
Okay, so Dr. Dye, People Risk Consulting, the name in itself is deliberately provocative. Most HR consultancies are about people strategy, talent optimization, but you're calling it what it really is, right? It's really risk. So here's what I want to explore. When you walk into an organization and you start talking about people risk, you're essentially telling leaders that they're ticking time bombs in their workforce. Walk me through how you help these executives to see that conversation not really as threatening, but as an opportunity. Because I imagine that some leaders might get defensive because you're saying, here are all the ways that, people could make your business not go the way that it's supposed to go.
Yeah. And let me provide a point of clarity. I am not an HR consultant.
Okay.
And that is the first thing people think of, though, when they think about people risk, right? They think about, oh, it's an HR problem. This is HR. This is the way we hire. This is the way we do it. No. Human risk comes into play anytime you have an organizational transformation that's operational in nature. There is always a human component to everything that you are doing in your organization. So it's not an HR issue. What it is, it's an organizational transformation issue. It's a change management issue. It is a C-level leadership issue. So I am a CEO advisor as well as an experimentation strategist who helps companies make better decisions by actually learning what it takes to experiment versus what I call dunking your hand into a boiling pot, burning your hand and flinging spaghetti at the wall, creating change fatigue and change chaos in your organization.
Okay, so tell me more about that. Let's go deeper on this experimentation. Give me your overview, and then I'll think of my questions.
Okay, so when you're innovating in an organization or you're experiencing challenges, problems, failure, there can be a tendency to want to slap a Band-Aid on it, to make a quick decision to please make the pain stop. And yes, sometimes that is necessary. And it is what you do when you pause and you step back and you understand what's bleeding versus what is severed to actually experiment and lean in with the right questions to make the right decision. We are moving from reactive business to proactive business, to understanding how to innovate in such a way that you are not creating organizational strain, you are not breaking business as usual, but what you are willing to do is challenge business as usual.
That's really good. Speaking of that, I'm really curious about there's an area that you focus in on, like M&A, for example, in the human capital risk and M&A. We've all seen acquisitions that look really wonderful on paper and then they crater because there's a cultural mismatch or talent exits and they leave in mass. So here's the scenario. So you're assessing an acquisition target and you kind of discover significant people risk. Maybe there's like toxic culture, maybe key player fight risk, succession gaps. But the business metrics, they might look amazing at the company. And the leadership is really excited about this deal that they're about to make. How do you actually deliver a message in a way that's heard rather than dismissed, especially because you're not HR, right? Which we just aligned. How do you deliver a message that just doesn't sound like, people management, risk aversion, because we know that timing and M&A stuff matters too. So maybe there's like consequences to consider. Maybe give us a little bit of that.
So let me tell you a story about a client engagement that I had that really just pulls this all together. So I was working with a multi-unit behavioral health organization that was looking to scale into a new and different market. So they found somebody that they oozed passion and they really felt connected in the area where they were trying to expand, and they were beginning to see this person as, this is it. This is great. What we can do is we can do a merger with this particular organization in this area, and that is going to expand our capacity because we're already working with them strategically. They're helping us get staff for our organization, so they obviously know how to recruit, they know culture, they know all of this. So let me tell you, in experimentation in life, what you focus on increases. So during M&A, it can be very tempting to focus on what looks like, wow, this is the miracle solution.
Hmm.
This is the thing that, wow, we've been missing. So what I did is I flew into the market and I sat down with the CEO, the CFO, and the COO of both organizations. And we went into the first stage of experimentation strategy, and that is understanding bias. Understanding where is the bias on both ends, what are the expectations on both ends, what are the fears for the M&A, what are the hopes for the M&A. So we went through this entire, just top to bottom deep dig. And the one thing that I am specifically known for is being a straight shooter. And I will ask the questions that everybody is thinking, but is just a little bit too guarded to ask.
Hmm.
And so I began to ask these questions and I began to dig. And what I found out is that company was actually hemorrhaging money. They
Mm.
needed my client's merger in order to even stay afloat. And if they did not have that investment, they would very likely disband. We also found out that their C level was, even though they had been in business for 3 years and they were relatively new, but still, we know the 5 year mark. There's a reason why you don't get funded unless you've passed the 5 year mark in business, because the majority do go out of business. So what happened is we really saw that even though they had a great reputation in the community and the CEO was quite connected and they knew how to recruit and they knew culture, they did not have that sustainable cash flow that was going to make for a productive merger. We said, okay, not a productive merger, but there's still some pieces here. Is this an acquisition? Then we got into values alignment and how much control one side wanted over the other. And net, without revealing the whole kit and caboodle, it stalled in the operating agreement, saving the client millions of dollars, because if they would have gone into either a merger or acquisition with this organization, they would have immediately been at a capital deficit on the project. They would have had to put all of their money into the project and they would be caught unaware. This is people risk.
Thank you for putting it So absolutely plainly. I want to ask you a little bit about on your side as a consulting. I call it the consulting dance. So thinking about some of these people risk situations, every consultant faces these same challenges, right? You come in as an external expert. Gives you credibility, gives you objectivity, all things that you need in these situations, but you're also like temporary. You'll eventually leave because that's the whole name of the game. In the organization, they actually need to own the solutions in most cases. So when you're working on very sensitive issues like potentially discrimination risk or key player exit assessments, how do you balance delivering the very hard truths that you're being paid to identify versus maintaining the relationships that really allow you to actually implement the changes that you're there to implement? Because consultants who are really too blunt a lot of times get exported right on out the door. But the ones that are too diplomatic don't really create real change. So I'd love to know how you balance those things.
Well, I think this is the difference between being a consultant and being an executive advisor. So, this particular client who I just gave the example for has been my client for 8 years. I am an executive advisor. I work on outcomes. So, our outcomes shift. I worked on M&A with them. I have worked on employee experience with them. I am currently working with them on a capital raise and understanding the building of a new facility, because a new facility is being built, just not in the way that we thought it was going to be. So there's a big difference in mindset
Yeah.
between being a in and out management consultant and being an executive advisor.
Yeah.
When you are an executive advisor, you bring in the absolute best of management consulting, of coaching, and of being someone, quite honestly, this, and I keep going to this client, but they're my favorite client. There was a marriage and a major deadline at the same time. And I flew to Italy. And so the executives and I are sitting at the front of the bus,
Yeah.
and there's staff and wedding party in the back of the bus. And we were calling staff to the front of the bus. We're on our way to Venice, Italy. We are we are calling staff to the front of the bus because we had a major decision point coming up, and I was advising them. I've advised executives on their planes, on their boats, on vacation. And I think that that's a difference, that management consultants are seen as someone to blame, a quick in and out, somebody who is temporary, who take it or leave it. Ultimately, with me, my minimum engagement ends up being about a year, but more often than not, they stay in what I call cohort with me. And that's why I created my CEO innovation cohort, because I found that with this executive loneliness epidemic, especially, executives are dying for
Yeah.
someone to walk alongside. And it can be me, it can be other executives, but now I'm kind of formalizing that process.
I love that. Tell us a little bit more about it and who are you looking for to be a part of it?
So the CEO innovation cohort is for executives who have well crossed the $1 million mark, most of them in the 10 million plus mid market range. And they are really having nothing extra to do in
Mhm.
this process. This is an environment that is solicitation protected with non solicits, confidentiality protected, and indemnification protected. It's a small group of 10 of like executives facing a similar problem. AI is a big one right now, and AI implementation, but it's a decision making cohort. And in the first week of that cohort, you are taught experimentation strategy. And after that, for the quarter that you're in or the year that you're in, you are in a lab, and you're in a lab and like no other. And actually, it is like some other. It reminds me a lot of my master's cohort and my doctoral cohort, where we're all doing something really hard, but we're doing it together. And we're not doing anything extra because we have the thing that we need to accomplish. But because we can walk together, we go farther.
I like it. I participated in one of these some time ago. I thought that it was valuable. But I also believe that the facilitator absolutely matters. And I think that your focus is actually kind of unique in this. And all right, we're going to jump into one of my favorite things to do, which is to really assess your decision making persona. Okay. So, or we can call it your decision making DNA. I've got 4 different styles, and I want to see which one resonates on how you actually operate. So after each one, you're going to give me a score of 0 to 100%, but you only get 100% total across all 4.
Here
Okay.
comes the Post-it note so I can do the math. I'm ready.
Here's your first one. The first one is the feeler. It's a values driven leader. So this persona prioritizes alignment with core values and mission, often weighing the human impact and cultural fit of decisions alongside business metrics. So when considering recommendations for a client, whether it's workplace protocols or succession planning or anything that's in the risk space that you're in, I ask myself, beyond the legal compliance and risk mitigation, what are the human consequences of this approach? If I recommend a restructuring that reduces organizational risk but forces out long tenured employees who have been loyal through tough times, have I really helped this organization or just made it more defensible in court? When advising on discrimination risk or employee satisfaction issues, there's tension between protecting the company from legal exposure and genuinely creating a workplace where people feel valued and safe. Even when the legally fastest, safest path is clear, I need confidence that we are building a culture of mutual respect and psychological safety, not just checking compliance boxes while ignoring the underlying human dynamics that created the risk in the first place. So, Dr. Dye, how
How
much?
many how many categories are there and how much do I have to split?
So there are 4 categories and
There's
you only
4
get
categories.
100% total. So how much does approaching decisions through this human impact lens actually resonate with you?
It resonates highly because I'm a huge proponent of psychological safety and its necessity in experimentation because without it, you are not safe to fail. So without knowing the other ones, that is a hard score to give, but I'm going to ask, am I free to adjust after I know all the categories?
You can. People typically request that, but then they never do it. But
Okay. Okay.
yes, it's an
Okay.
open yes, after you're all done. So what's your
I'm going
first
to
one?
go with I'm going to go with 40.
All right, 40%. That's 40% feeler. Here's your next one. It's called the planner. It's a strategic visionary. So this persona focuses on long-term implications and future-proofing decisions, always thinking several moves ahead and considering multiple scenarios. So when making strategic recommendations about organizational structure or succession planning, I'm positioning clients for 3 divergent futures. One scenario, there's hybrid work, it becomes permanent, and talent competition goes global, requiring completely reimagined approaches to cultural retention and leadership development that don't depend on physical presence. In another, economic pressures force organizations to do more with less, where identifying and retaining only the highest performers becomes existential, making succession planning and key player retention more critical than broad employee satisfaction. In a third, regulatory requirements around workplace safety, discrimination, and transparency intensify dramatically, where organizations without robust documentation and proactive risk management face existential legal exposure. Each future requires different people, infrastructure. So the first rewards distributed leadership models. The second demands rigorous performance differentiation. And the third requires comprehensive compliance systems. How do I help clients build risk frameworks today that position them to thrive regardless of which scenarios emerge? So, Dr. Dye, how much does that multi-scenario future focused thinking drive your recommendations?
My goodness. Quite a bit. However, the danger in that is that if you are so future focused, you do not allow room for iteration, you put yourself in danger. So iteration is really important. Future planning, vision, risk mitigation playbooks, those are all important. However, with new data comes new strategies. So I'm going to give that one a 25.
You're giving me so many nuggets right now. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm about to get off this call and go talk to my team because we got some stuff to talk
I
about.
love
Okay.
it.
Like,
I
it's
love
good.
it.
Great. Okay. The next one is called the counter. It's called the challenger of assumptions. So this persona naturally questions conventional wisdom and looks for contrarian opportunities, often finding success by zigging when others zag. So when evaluating a client's retention challenges or culture issues, I ask myself, what fundamental assumptions are we making about why people stay or leave that might be completely wrong? The industry in itself, specifically around people, has long operated on the premise that better benefits, competitive compensation, and positive culture drive retention. But in many organizations, the real issue isn't what they're offering, but who they are hiring, that they're attracting people who were never good fits in the first place. What if some retention problems are actually success stories because the wrong people self selected out, while other consultants chase engagement scores and employee satisfaction surveys? What if the more important metric is, are we retaining the people who drive disproportionate value while letting go of those who don't? When deciding whether to help clients boost overall retention numbers or help them to get more strategic about who they're retaining, how do I avoid the trap where challenging conventional retention wisdom makes me seem like I don't care about people and employees? How much does that assumption challenging perspective shape your approach?
And dropping feeler down to 30 to
Okay.
make room for this,
Okay.
because I believe that when it comes to counter, I am probably 35 or 40. Let's see. Experimentation strategy is all about challenging status quo. You don't come into research with a research answer. You come in with a research question. So if you are unable to counter, what that means is that you are wearing your own mask of bias when it comes to your experimentation, and you're going to guide it wherever you want it to go. What you seek, you will find. So if you have that skill of being a counter, of challenging status quo, and of being able to experiment to it, that is incredibly valuable. And that is an innovation driving versus eliminating behavior. I'll give it a 35 and we'll see what the next one is. I've
All
got my
right.
pen and paper out here and I'm almost out of points, Tisha. I'm telling
Yeah.
you. I'm gonna have to make more adjustments. I've got 10 to go. So let's see what this next one is.
Here we go. It's called the data driver. It's an evidence based decision maker. So, this persona relies heavily on metrics, analytics, and concrete evidence to validate decisions, preferring proof over intuition. So, before making recommendations about human capital investments or remediation strategies, I ask myself, what does the research actually reveal versus what leadership perceives? I want rigorous analysis distinguishing between metrics that demonstrate HR activity, training hours delivered, policies updated, surveys administered, and indicators that actually predict business outcomes like correlation between manager quality and team retention, financial impact of key player exits, relationships between psychological safety scores and innovation metrics, leading indicators of discrimination claims before they materialize. Here's the paradox. The data that proves that we're actually addressing risks is immediately measurable. We implemented the training, we updated the handbook, but the outcomes that reveal whether we actually reduce the risk, avoided lawsuits, retained critical talent, maintained productivity through transitions, often only becomes visible when the crisis doesn't happen. How do I build evidence based conviction and recommendations when the most important success metric is the disaster that was prevented, which by definition is invisible in the data? So, how much does that evidence focused approach guide your decisions?
I have further lowered feeler to 25. I have lowered planner to 20.
Okay.
Counter remains 35 and data driver is 20. When
Boom.
you run an experiment and you don't have a way to measure success, it's like handing someone a basketball and telling them to play baseball with it. You need to know your objectives, your key results, your key performance indicators of roles or initiatives. And more than that, your key quality indicators of did we do this with quality? However, you don't want to have that to the detriment of overprocessing a company. If you overnumber, overprocess a company, you actually will impact innovation because people are more interested in did we hit the number than did we actually create an innovative result that served our core audience. So, although data matters, also selection bias is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I said before, what you focus on increases, same thing with the number,
Mm-hmm.
and numbers can lie.
All the
So
time.
numbers exactly. So you
Yeah,
tell the story you want to with your numbers as well.
true.
So when you have a healthy balance, and I guess where we've kind of weighed out here is it starts with the contrarian for me and the challenging of the status quo and the opening up to maybe this is true, but maybe this is not true. So maybe this is possible. You can then align with your core values, your mission, vision, values that are not just writing on the wall, but actions on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can balance between long term planning and today's data during the experiment.
Oh, I hope you guys were listening because that makes a ton of sense. It makes sense to me. It supports some of the theories that C model actually. We have a 5x5 framework that operates under some of the same auspices. So that's really, really good stuff. So Dr. Dye, I want to thank you very much for your time today. If you could give our audience one piece of advice, and I think I want to make this a piece of not so obvious advice, something that might go against the grain, that might not be what they think it ought to be. Would you give that one piece of advice to our listeners?
Absolutely. Be willing to unlearn what you think you know because unlearning is incredibly important. When you are so tied to what you think you are applying what you think you know to today's environment where what you think you know may be data from last year, 5 years ago, your childhood. We don't know where that comes from. But when you are willing to unlearn what you think you know, you become open to experimentation, open to iteration, open to change, open to doing business differently and actually increasing your revenue versus having another year of status quo.
It's really good. That's a great set of advice. Would you tell our listeners where they can learn more about you and more about your company?
Absolutely. You can go to www.peopleriskconsulting.com. Also, I love connecting with people on LinkedIn, so please look me up on LinkedIn. I am Dr. Diane Dye, the experimentation strategist. I will connect with you, DM me. I'm real. I'm not AI.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. I am grateful. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And for our listeners, if this conversation made you think about people risks in your own organization, we'd love for you to tell us more about it. Tell us all about it on LinkedIn and other social media. Subscribe to the show. Share it with someone who needs this perspective. And let's keep the conversation going using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. And until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.